Good morning and welcome to another pre-market review session with the Market Trader. My name is Ray, the Market Trader, and before we begin, we'll need to go through our obligatory risk disclosure. So let's go ahead and do that. So just to remind everyone that the content that's being published and distributed by the Market Trader is to be treated as general information only. None of the information provided by the company or contained herein is intended as investment advice or offer to buy, sell, recommend, endorse, sponsor any security company, future instrument, or fund. We all understand that the use of this information is to be used at your own risk, and the company, its partners, representatives, agents, employees, contractors assume no responsibility or liability for any use or misuse of such information. Future trading does carry a fair amount of risk, and it's not for every investor. Investor could potentially lose all or more of their investment capital. Only risk capital money that can be lost without jeopardizing one's financial security or lifestyle should be used for trading, and only those individuals with sufficient risk capital should consider trading. Nothing contained herein is a solicitation or an offer to buy, sell futures, options, or Forex, and past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. All right, so now that we've gotten through the risk disclosure, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention over to the news portal and see what kind of news, we have. Dirk, good morning. See what news we have that could potentially impact us in the markets. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at our news portal and see. Okay, so a fair amount of news today. The fact it's Friday also, right? So we have, let's see, Michigan sentiment around inflation coming in at 10 a.m. Eastern. We have PCE price index year over year and month over month reporting at 10 a.m. also. We have consumer spending month over month, kind of an indicator on the health of the economy coming in at 10 a.m. And then we have some follow-up reports also coming in at the same time, 5-year inflation, 1-year inflation. And then later in the session, we have some events around the president. And it looks like 3 o'clock, we have some information about consumer credit. But I think the big impact news will happen here earlier in this session. That is the numbers that I just mentioned earlier. All right. So now that we have kind of a sense of what news we have in store here, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention over to the news platform. Not the news. Sorry, we're gonna turn our attention to our platform itself, our trading platform, and see what kind of context we can kind of pull from the markets here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a chart of gold, because normally we start with gold here, and we're going to go ahead and open up a daily chart. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's display that to everyone. We'll go here and here and here. Okay, just kind of adjust the screen here. We're going to go ahead and remove some of our drawings here. All right, there we are. Okay, so again, it appears that we are developing something in the way of some sort of what appears to be some sort of ascending triangle pattern. Now, we've kind of been tracking this as kind of a symmetrical pattern, but the closer we get here to the 4360 and above, 4370, it appears to me that this is more of an ascending wedge than a Dorito pattern or a symmetrical wedge pattern here. Okay, so what I'm thinking is that this is going to be an area of resistance, and that what we're doing right now is just kind of following this trend line up to that area here. Okay, so somewhere along those lines. Okay, so that's kind of what I think that's kind of what we're working towards. Okay, now as you can see here, right, if we are to ignore for the moment, right, if we are to ignore for the moment what we're seeing along the sides here, we've started to, on the daily chart, started to create some higher highs and higher lows in this market. Okay, a little bit of kind of rangy kind of price action of late, but now we have developed a candle here. It's a developing candle, but a candle that is potentially could wipe out all this activity, this sell activity that we had of late. Okay, so daily chart is giving us some indication that maybe we are in the midst of some maybe bullish price structure here to the upside here. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and move over to our 4-hour chart and take a look at what the 4-hour chart has to offer here. We're going to start off with the removing the initial balance range. And you can see here that, we created an area, right? We created an area here of some demand, right? So this area was the last area where we kind of launched away from. Okay. We came back, tested that area around 4,200, 4,193. Okay. And created a little bit of a double bottom. And now we are in the midst of maybe a bullish move here to the upside. Okay. So area of resistance is above us here. I'm going to call it 4,290. Okay. 4,290 is our recent area of resistance that has not been tested of late. So my expectation is that that area is going to be somewhat reactive. Okay. And to what degree, I don't know. I don't know to what degree sellers are going to potentially step into into that area. But the fact that we've had sellers there before and have not visited that area, I don't expect that it's just going to allow price to just plow through it without some sort of fight here. Okay. So 4290 does 4290 does appear to be an area of resistance on the 4-hour, and then let's call it 4200 on the low end. Okay, 4200 on the low end would be kind of my kind of range on the 4-hour chart. Taking a look at the 30-minute. Okay, looking at the 30-minute chart here. Okay, so you can see again that same kind of structure that we've been talking about, these higher highs and higher lows in this market. Okay, so there's that midnight line that we've been tracking here of late in the equity markets. Okay, you can see again we are developing a higher high and higher low. Okay, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. So again, we are in some sort of bullish structure to the upside. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up our fixed range volume profile here and see where price is in relation to yesterday's price action. And so we're going to go ahead and, not there, but see, find our candle here. There it is. We're going to drag that across to the close of the session, right about there. And you can see that price is well above, okay, well above value from yesterday. Okay, so again, and more importantly, what I'd like to kind of call out is the fact that we exceeded the range. Okay, we exceeded the range. We came back, retested value area high, the most recent area of consolidation. And what did we find? We didn't find sellers, we found more buyers. Okay. And those buyers came in and now has kind of driven the price higher. Okay. So again, a little bit, I would say maybe a tad bit extended here at the moment. Okay. We're well above our VWAP and now well above our 9 EMA. So it would not be a surprise for me to see a little bit of a pullback. I'm going to take a look here. I haven't looked at this of late, but now that given that we have a very strong move here, I'd like to take a look and see where there it is, our average daily range. There it is. We reached it, okay, and we reached it pretty early in the session. So I would say that historically, exceeding this area is not, exceeding our daily range unless we have some sort of, news event that would trigger, a continuation move or a momentous move. Normally, an area like this would cause price to maybe slow down in whatever direction that it's going. In this case, to the upside. So the fact that we've reached the average daily high causes me a little bit of pause, as far as a continuation. But nonetheless, it's something. Since it's happened early in the session, that doesn't mean that it cannot continue. What it does says for me, what it does say for me is I don't want to enter right at the area of what's historically can be resistance. Okay, so what I'm going to be waiting for is maybe a return of price back down to say VWAP or maybe the 9 EMA, maybe settlement. All right, these are all logical areas for me to participate in a trade potentially to the upside. Okay, so let's go ahead now and take a look at the initial balance, and we're going to go ahead and start off with the Asia session. Okay, so Asia session, you can see that we found some buyers, right? So we took a look below, right? Took a look below the initial balance range, got to the 50% extension of that range, and ever since then we've been bullish. All right, so found some buyers in this market. London appears to also have found some buyers. Okay, so also extended to the upside, reached our ADR high. Now the question becomes: is price going to be able to remain above, let's say 42? Let's say 42.60. Let's call it maybe 42.58, somewhere in that range, because that's the high. Was actually 42.57. Right? Can price remain above 42.57? Because that will give us an indication that maybe it has the strength to continue in that direction. Otherwise, what I'm seeing here is that maybe there's a possibility that maybe we take a little bit of a deeper retracement, right? Maybe we come back to not quite the value area low, but certainly initial balance low around what's that, 42.50. Okay, before we make any sort of move to the upside. Okay, if I'm looking at a short trade, unfortunately, the short trade for me doesn't give me honestly enough runway. Okay, there's not enough runway for a short. This is at best one-to-one trade, right? Because our first target could be the initial balance high, and if I think it's going to rotate all the way through, then we're looking at maybe a 2-to-1, maybe a 1.5-to-1 type of trade if I'm thinking short. Now, again, that would be a little bit counter trend, right? The trend of the market has been to the upside, but the fact that we have reached some of these resistance areas above us would not be out of the realm of possibility that we could retrace here a little bit. Okay, but I'm more of the camp that the market is bullish. All right, gold is bullish, and that I should be looking for opportunities to take advantage of that to the upside. And that means that I need to look for price to retrace here a bit and provide me a location where I can better manage my risk if I'm really serious about entertaining a long trade. Okay, all right, let's go ahead now that we've gotten through the gold market. We'll go ahead and take a look at the crude oil market. All right, so crude oil market, we'll start off with a daily chart. And again, we continue to remain inside this range. We're going to go ahead and turn off ADR here for a moment. Don't need that on the daily chart. And see what we've been up to. Well, we continue to be following the path of what we've been following so far since tail end of October. And that is a market that's inside some sort of bearish channel to the downside. Every time we've come up to the top of the channel, we found some sellers. Every time we come up to the bottom of the channel, we found some buyers. That's kind of how we've been trading of late. So 57, let's say 57.50 to the downside, and about let's say 62 to the upside. That's been the range, right? So we kind of been bouncing bearish channel. So what is a trader to do? Well, we need to focus in. If we are going to trade this market, we need to continue to focus on the pattern. And the pattern is that we are inside a channel and that we should fade at the top of the channel and look to long the lower end of the channel. Okay, so let's go ahead now and move on to the 4-hour chart. Okay, 4-hour chart, we're going to go ahead and remove our initial balance. We don't need that right now. And take a look and see what additional context the 4-hour chart is going to give us. So here you see that we are at the top end of the channel, and we've been down this path before, right? So the last time we were here up at these levels, right? What did it cause? Well, it caused a little bit of a sell-off, right? Right. We've gotten selling every time we've reached the top end of these channels, right? So what can we make? What can we make of this? Well, maybe there's a possibility of a yet another move to the downside, right? We're developing a little bit of structure here, right? We have maybe the early indications that price is developing a little bit of a resistance zone or supply zone up above here, right? You can see that price is unable to close inside 59.70, 59.80, right? It's unable, right? 60 right now is serving as kind of an area of resistance in this market. Okay. So the question now becomes, are we going to continue and are we going to maybe pick up some momentum on this move? I think what's challenging us here a little bit is that the strength of this bullish candle that broke the range. Okay. Now the question is, can the buyers continue in this path? Is this merely a retracement for a larger move higher? Well, I wouldn't expect the buyers allowing price to get too much further than 50% of this candle. If they do allow it, that means that the buyers are not very strong, okay, and that we should expect the market to continue to maybe rotate through this range. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 30-minute chart. All right, so I'm going to remove. Let's see. I'm going to remove my channel. The channel is kind of not offering me much insight here, so I'm going to remove that. I'm going to leave my little area of resistance that I've kind of highlighted on the 4-hour, and notice that there's a confluence there with respect to the settlement price. That's also acting as kind of an area of resistance. And yeah, so first thing, where is price in relation to yesterday's price action? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to go to the start of the session on Thursday, drag that across to the close of the session on Thursday, okay, and see where is price in relation. Well, guess what? We're inside value, indicating that there's really not a whole lot of aggressive buying or selling, right? So indicating that the market participants, at least for now, have found some area of balance in this market, right? They're quite content with keeping price around this 59.70 to 59.50. Okay, they seem to be quite content with that. All right. So what are we to do? Well, if we are serious about this market, okay, obviously this range is a little bit on the small side to trade. We need to continue to focus in on the edges of the market. So one edge that I would focus in on is 59.40 to the downside, right? I would expect that area to be reactive, right? I would expect that price would have maybe a little bit of challenge getting below that level. Okay. On the high side, well, we have the 60 level. So we have 59.40 on the low end and 60 on the higher end. So that's going to be my range. Unless price gets it into either of those areas, I'm not participating. I'm sitting this market aside, right? It could do all it wants to do inside this middle. I'm not going to try to pick which direction that's going to be, okay, until it gets to one of these levels that I just mentioned. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the initial balance here now, and let's kind of navigate through the various sessions and see if anything, what price, if price was able to do anything in any of these markets. Okay, so looking at Asia, all right. So Asia was able to create a relatively strong, push to the downside. You can see that we got a nice extension to the downside here, after establishing the initial balance range in Asia, right? We got a nice push to the downside, and it reached the 200% extension. Okay, nice, would have been made for a nice 2-to-1, 3-to-1 type of trade. Looking at London. Okay, looking at London here. There's London. Well, London hasn't really picked a direction, right? It says, well, we really don't know exactly which direction to take this market. Asia says that they wanted to take it lower. London is not sure. Okay, so we basically remained in range, or have remained in range throughout the London session. Okay, so it'll be before we can maybe potentially entertain a trade. It seems to be would be wise, right? Either I can play right this 59.50, 59.75 levels back and forth, okay, or I can wait for price to exceed some of these ranges with some volume and then see if maybe I can maybe get a sustained move. Okay. Now the problem is if you recall when we were looking at the daily, it hasn't been in any sort of sustained move. The only sustained move is lower, right? So if I'm going to err on one side as in the way of sustainment, then it would have to be to the downside. Okay. And then I would look for opportunities to sell this market. All right. Okay, so let's see. I'm looking at my like indicator and participation here. So it looks like our likes and our participants are equal billing here. So don't need to remind everyone about hitting the likes and subscribes and leaving a message or two about how this analysis is supporting your trading. But for others that maybe catch this video, that would be an excellent outcome. Okay, so let's go ahead now and take a look at the Nasdaq. All right, we'll take a look at the Nasdaq here, and we'll take a look at the daily. All right, so we'll start off with the daily chart, and let's remove some of our drawings here. Okay, so what to make of this market? Well, it's a market that up until recently has been grinding higher, right? We've been grinding to the upside, right? Now it seems to be slowing a bit, right? You can see that we've gone from a market that was driving to the upside to a market that's showing a little bit. There's a little bit of maybe some cracks in the armor here, right? We're showing a little bit of indecision here as we get close to 25,800. We're starting to see a little bit of indecision that they're not embracing the idea of maybe continuing higher, right? That maybe the highs have maybe potentially have been placed, right? Maybe this 26,400 is kind of the highs that we could expect maybe potentially to see here. As long as we cannot get above 25,800, then 26,400 obviously is not at risk here, right? So this level here on the daily, it appears, okay, from the looks of it, it's an important level. Okay, so I'm going to mark it. Okay, so as long as price cannot get above this 25,800 level, then it opens the door for the market to eventually turn and maybe create that other leg lower. Okay, because right now, right, we have lower lows, lower highs, lower low. Do we get a lower high? Okay. Do we continue with the lower high? Right. So again, we're right at the cusp of going either way on this, right? So 25,800, okay, is going to be my line in the sand. All right, I'm just going to mark that as my area of importance here. So 25,800, nice round number. As long as we stay below that level, I'm going to think more along the lines of maybe opportunities to the downside. Okay, because I do see that this area, it has been an area where we found some sellers in the past, and the expectation is that they could return. Okay, all right. So daily chart, I would say range. It's kind of maybe ranging of late. Still technically bullish, but ranging. Okay. So again, it's kind of maybe a decision time here shortly in this market. All right. Looking at the 4-hour chart. Okay, 4-hour chart. We're going to go ahead and turn off our initial balance range here. Turning off our initial balance range, we have a developing a developing bearish engulfing candle, but we've been down this path before, right? The moment we think that the market is going to continue lower, it gets bought up, right? So this is a pattern here, right? We got a bearish engulfing pattern, thinking that maybe the market was going to continue. Didn't. Found some buyers, rallied. Okay, we get another engulfing candle or engulfing candle here. Again, found some buyers. Another attempt at going lower. Found some buyers. Are we going to find some buyers again? Right? That's kind of the question. That's been the pattern. Are we going to find some buyers here around 25,600, 25,75, 25,575? Is this just another dip for another push higher? But you can see here, right? You can see, right? You can see that the momentum is slowing a bit, right? It's kind of, you can see that we're kind of rounding, maybe potentially creating a little bit of a rounding top. Okay. Let's take a look at the fixed range volume profile. All right. So fixed range volume profile, we have, let's look for the start of the session here. Let's move down to the 30-minute chart to do this. So let's open that up. And you can see, oops, that's not what I wanted. See if we can put this in the middle here somewhere. That makes it a little bit easier. Don't have to stretch my neck as much. All right, so right about here, okay. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the start of the session into the close of the session here. All right, and so overnight was a bit bullish. All right, now again, we coming into the start of the session, we're getting a little bit of a kind of a pre-market kind of sell-off, right? I don't know. This seems to, I see, yeah. So we had a similar kind of thing. We had a similar kind of thing in yesterday's session, right? Kind of, well, actually, this came a bit later. I think there's one of these days before here. Yeah, so this day here, we had a kind of a pre-market sell-off only to find buyers for the rest of the session. Again, pre-market sell-off. Now, the question is, are we going to find buyers around 25,540, 25,550 to kind of cause the market to kind of rally again? Okay. So we see that price is back inside value. All right. So back inside value from yesterday. I would say that this level here, this 25,000, let's say 560 level, would be a logical level for price to potentially bounce off of, right? That would be a logical kind of area for that. Okay, maybe even a little bit lower, maybe as low as 5,525, 25,525 would be a kind of a logical bounce area. Okay, so we have sort of the open of the 6 a.m., sort of the 9 a.m. candle here. So we had a relatively strong candle, got down to the settlement price from yesterday. So again, this would also serve as a good, reversal location. Okay, if it's able to hold, right? So this is also another area here. Okay, that could be an area where we could reverse from. Okay, so we'll have to see how this all plays out. Okay, all right. So we have that midnight time. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but we've been talking about that in group coaching. This is the price that was where it was at midnight Eastern time. Okay, and there is a school of thought that and actually happens quite frequently in the equities that the market finds or reaches this level at some point during the session. Okay, there's I don't know, somewhere in the range of 70% of the time that we reach that level sometime during the U.S. session. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Okay, all right. So let's take a look here at the initial balance ranges. Let's see what we can make of the initial balance. Okay, so we'll take a look here at Asia. Okay, so we'll start off with that, and you can see Asia was initially bullish. Okay, we got a nice push to the 100%, actually all the way to the 200% extension of the initial balance range. So Asia was initially bullish. London stepped in and really wasn't, I guess, of late, really embracing the idea of longs here, right? So the initial balance range remained on the lower end of the initial balance range, and it finally broke to the downside. So while Asia has been higher, London is not necessarily in agreement with that. Okay, so now we're coming into some areas where Asia was a participant. Now, do we still have participants on the Asian side to maybe absorb some of the selling that's going on right now? It looks like they are attempting it, and maybe potentially we get back to the highs of the day. Okay, that's certainly a possibility here. Okay, all right. So what to make of this? Well, we're back at an area, right? We're back in an area of prior value. Okay, so this would be a logical location for price to reverse away from. Okay, if we accept value early in the session, then I would say that coming down to 25,560 is not out of the realm of possibilities, right? Before we see reversals, we've already kind of documented those things. So probably if I'm a seller, I'm probably a seller up at the 740, 720 range. Okay, if I'm a buyer, well, buying probably I'm looking at the edges here, 540, 560 to be logical places. Maybe an outside chance that I look at 600 as another area of maybe an area where price could reverse. Okay, so headed into the New York session, I'm going to say again, kind of that we are kind of in range or more of a rangy kind of price action. We have, again, a mixed bag with respect to sentiment. Asia seems to be bullish. London, maybe not as much. Okay. But I do see, as long as we can stay above, say, 25,000, 626 or 625 or even 600, that maybe we have a reasonable chance of maybe rallying, okay, up to maybe the low end of the initial balance range for London. Okay. All right. Let's see. Anything else I want to say about NASDAQ before we move on to the ES? Let's go ahead and move on to the ES. All right. So ES, start off with the daily chart. Okay. Daily chart's not giving us all that much in the way of a decisive, right? We're coming up into an area where we found sellers in the past. Okay. So again, kind of creating an area here. If I look at this, if I'm looking at this, right? So this area right here, around, what was that, 6,900? Around 6,900 seems to be an area of some resistance. 6,900 all the way to 6,960 seems to be a resistant area in the ES, okay? So is price going to do what it has done in the past when it's reached this level? Meaning, is price going to reverse away from this area, right? Last time we've been here, right? We've been here, sold off, right? Got to here, sold off. This is the first attempt at coming back to an area of known sellers. Are we going to see sellers here? Okay, this would be a logical area for sellers. Now, unfortunately, the market has been bullish of late. Now it's not as strong, right? We're not coming into this area, with necessarily all guns a-blazing, right? It's kind of coming in kind of weak, right? We have a lot of indecision bars that are being created over the last couple of days, right? So we have to ask ourselves, do we have the participants to really drive through this area? Okay, and I'm not sure we do. Okay, so at least not at the moment. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the 4-hour chart. Okay, so 4-hour chart, we're going to go ahead and turn off the initial balance range for a moment and to kind of take a look here and see what the initial balance range has to offer. What the 4-hour chart has to offer in the way of context here. Okay, so you can see that price is not having an easy time here on picking which direction it wants to go. A lot of candle wicks on both ends of the candle here, right? We have sellers on the highs, buyers on the lows, sellers on the highs, buyers on the lows. And we've been kind of grinding ever so slightly to the upside. Okay. But it is a grinding kind of price action. Now the question becomes what are we going to do when we get to about this 6,900 level? We can continue to grind in this kind of fashion until we get to 6,900. And maybe at that point, maybe sellers come in with a little bit more in the way of strength. Okay. Because you can see here, that's a known area of sellers. All right. Let's go ahead and move into the 30-minute chart. Let's see what kind of context we can pull from the 30-minute. Okay, so price right now is hovering around the settlement price, right? Hovering around settlement. We're going to go ahead and open up the fixed range volume profile here. Okay, so there we are, fixed range volume profile. Carry that across to the close. Okay, and where are we? Well, we're right around the same level that we were with the NASDAQ, right? Right at the edge of value, right at the edge of settlement. Okay. So is this a logical area for reversal? Yes. We got a pretty big dip into the value area before we found some buyers, but looks like we are getting maybe a little bit of interest here around value area high and settlement. Okay. Now we are obviously, you can see that we're pretty extended to the downside, right? Below our 9 EMA, below our VWAP. Okay. So if I'm going to embrace this move to the downside, I'd like to see how we react right around this level here, right around 68.75, because 68.75 is our VWAP and our 9 EMA, and that could offer us a location for a continuation move, right? That would be a logical place for price to continue in the current direction. So I'm gonna be placing an alert right around the VWAP and the 9 EMA to see if it offers me an opportunity to the downside. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at our initial balance ranges. And we're going to go ahead and start off with the Asia session. So looking at Asia, we have what it looks like what appears to be a bullish kind of move. Yeah, looks like we were bullish initially and during Asia, right? You can see that we got a nice little break above the initial balance range, right? You guys see that, right? Nice little break above the initial balance range. We held above it and offered an extension up to the 100% before the market stalled there for pretty much the entire session. And then once we got into London, okay, once we got into London, London looked at this and said, you know what, Asia folks, we really don't, we're really not embracing this view that the market is going to head higher. We have a different view on this. We think that the market is going to go lower. So we're going to take all those perceived gains that you made in the overnight, and we're just going to wipe those all away. Okay. And that's exactly what they did. All the gains that maybe some of these folks, assuming that they didn't get stopped out, have been wiped away, right? So we're back to square one, back to where we started with the Asia session, okay? Back to the close, right? So now that we're back at the close, which direction are we going to go? Well, we've gotten some reaction from the Asia folks potentially that they're still interested, right, in maybe participating in this market to the upside. The question now is, do they have the participation? Do they have the participants to make that happen? Because right now we're inside some bearish structure as of London, right? We closed below the initial balance range. Price remains below our 9 and our VWAP. So if I'm looking at this, then right, if I'm a seller, well, I'm a seller around I think we mentioned this, right? 68.75, right? If I'm a buyer, well, maybe a buy as long as we can stay above the value area high, right? Maybe let's see if we've already kind of reached the midnight hour here. Maybe a buy around this area would not be out of the realm of possibilities here, right? I have a logical reference level for price to reverse away from. Okay, so again, so headed into the session, the market appears to be in some sort of range, right? We've had Bullish price action happening on the Asia side, bearish price action happened on the London side. Which direction is the US going to take? Are they just going to be bouncing between those two levels? Okay. Or are they going to actually, in earnest, based on some of the news that we get today, drive price in one direction or the other? We'll have to wait and see. All right. So let's take a look now at the final equity markets before we do one final pass across all the markets, and that is the Dow. All right. So we're going to take a look at the Dow on the daily. So the Dow looks even weaker on the daily than maybe either of the other equity markets, right? So a little bit even more indecision we're seeing. Okay, you can see that we had a very indecisive close yesterday in the Dow, and now we're developing yet another indecisive candle. Okay, now again, if I'm just looking at the most recent price action, you would say, Coach, we're in a bullish, kind of trend, and I would have to agree with that statement, right? We are making higher highs and higher lows. But then if we kind of move this over here a little bit, we're making higher lows and higher highs in a market that's still inside a bearish swing. Now, the fact that the sellers allow price to get, I don't know, 75 to 80% of their range, that's an indication that the sellers are not all that strong, okay, in this market, right? The price managed to get right in the wheelhouse of the sellers, but that doesn't mean that they're not still around, right? I would expect that we have some sellers, lurking around 48,400. Okay, I would expect that. Why? Because I've seen them there before, right? We got to that level, and what happened? We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days straight of downward price action, right? So the expectation is that as we get closer to this, that the chances of sellers stepping in potentially grows until it's broken. Okay, so this area right here, I would say, is ripe. Okay, is ripe for a seller to step in with force. Okay. Maybe he's just biding his time. Maybe he's saying, "Okay, we'll let the bulls have their day, but we're not." The line in the sand is this 48,400 level. We're not letting the buyers get above that level. Okay, so daily chart again, bullish of late, little indecision in the most recent couple of days here. Looking at the 4-hour, again, you can see that we are in some sort of bearish channel here. Another indecisive candle that's being created here, indicating that there's still some indecision in this market as to which direction they want to take it. Okay, so let's see, close that off. Okay, so again, still making higher highs and higher lows, right? Higher highs and higher lows. Again, this area above here, right? This would be a nice 4-hour level of support. Let's say 47,740. Okay, that's a nice logical place for support in this market. Okay, if we break below that, then we start to talk about the potential of the market maybe heading or continue to head lower. 30-minute chart. All right, 30-minute chart. Here we are in some sort of range. We're some sort of a range kind of price action in this market. Very sloppy price action. I'm going to be honest. Okay, not an easy set of candles really to decipher. So when in doubt, it's best to step out or step away, right? So no need to try to figure out something that's not clear, right? There's plenty of instruments that are probably a lot clearer than this, okay, to participate in. Okay, so here we are on the low end of value. Okay, so if we have buyers, if there are buyers in the market, this is probably a good discount location to find them, right? This is the what's that? This is the bargain corner right now in the Dow right here. Okay, we're at the bargain corner. Question is, are we going to find enough buyers to continue to drive price higher, right? Because as long as we remain inside this bearish channel, it opens the door for maybe continued price action to the downside, right? We need to break above 47 let's call it 47,975. Okay, I'm just gonna use these highs, right, in order to kind of break any sort of structure that would indicate that we're headed higher, right? So we have this 47,825, and we have 47,975. Okay, that's kind of the range that we're working with. Okay. Let's take a look at, we already did that. So let's take a quick peek at the initial balance here and see what historically price has been able to do. All right, so let's see what Asia's been up to. So looking at Asia, Asia was pretty much neutral. It did make a couple of attempts to go higher, but certainly not with the same strength as either of the other two equity markets. London stepped in and says, well, if you guys are indecisive on direction, we're not. We think this is going lower, and that's exactly what they did. They drove price lower, and they've come into an area of maybe a potential area of support. But this market does look very rangy to me. And what's even more alarming is that this range is not very wide, and which will make it very difficult to trade. So if I had to choose a equity market to trade, I'm not sure Dow would be the one. Okay, today, right? Because we are seeing a lot in the way of overlapping price, and when we see overlapping price, it's difficult to decide which direction they want to take the market. All right, and participate in it. Okay. All right. Until it breaks some of these levels below or above, I'm really not all that interested in participating. Okay. Let's go ahead and make one final pass across all the markets. And if there's a market that we're kind of ending kind of early here, if there's a market that is of particular interest to you, feel free to post it in the chat, and I'm happy to take a look at it with the time that we have remaining. Okay. So what's going on with gold? Well, gold just broke above the initial balance range for London, indicating that the sentiment still remains to the bullish side. Unfortunately, these bullish candles are not all that strong. And if I recall, when we were looking at this, we were up against an ADR level. Okay, so the fact that we're up against an ADR level means that maybe we'll start to see a little bit of a slowdown in the momentum to the upside. Okay, and that what we might be better served in looking for opportunities that will take us maybe back to settlement, maybe back to VWAP, something along those lines. That would be kind of the more logical, view. Okay, so while the market is showing signs of bullish, unfortunately, we come into an area where we could see maybe a little bit of a reversal in price, maybe a reversal in price back to some of these levels I mentioned, and then that we stay maybe in range for the rest of the day. Okay. All right. Crude oil. Crude oil has been bearish and remains to be bearish. A lot of overlapping candles, not giving us anything in the way of direction. We're in value, a market that's balanced, a market that I probably don't want to be a part of. Okay. Again, a lot of overlapping price. Again, there's probably far better instruments that provide us tradable opportunities than what crude oil is providing right now. We're kind of in the middle of the range, right? This is the high end of the range. This is the low end of the range, and we're right smack in the middle. Okay, and we're also smack in the middle of value. Not an area that I want to be a part of. I need to focus on the edges, right? I need to be above. I need to look at 60-30 and 59, and then maybe they can entice me to participate, but not now. Nasdaq again, we're at an area where we could find some buyers. We just had a relatively strong sell-off to the downside to those levels, but we've been in this story before, right? We've had a sell-off prior to the market, only to find buyers and remain bullish for the rest of the session. Could this be one of those days? Possibly. Okay, I certainly see if this manages to close relatively strong, that heading back up to the highs would not be out of the question. Okay, as long as we could stay above value area high from yesterday, that possibility exists. So market again in range, right? Again, trying to understand exactly which direction they want to take this. If I had to, err on one side right now, I would say I would err on the side of the bulls, just because of the risk associated with a sell at this point. Okay. ES also probably offering similar kind of thing here. So ES. Oh my God. Let's see if I can type here. All right. So similar kind of view. Again, we're up against value, a little bit tighter range here. So we've already kind of consumed pretty much 50% of this candle here. So if these sellers were strong, they probably wouldn't have allowed a price to get in so deeply into this candle. Now, this candle still is about 7 minutes away from closing. So we'll have to see how this candle closes. But right now, if this right bearish candle, if these participants were serious, I don't think they would have allowed price to get so deep into that candle there. Okay. All right. So again, similar kind of view. I would say again, rangy kind of price action. I do see that, I think it's going to probably be pretty reasonable for us to maybe get back to 69.80. Okay. And then I think that's when the decision comes. The 69.80 offer us a continuation move to the downside, or does this offer us maybe a break, maybe back to the highs here, okay, to 69.90, 68.90, right? So some decisions are going to be coming soon in the ES here, okay? And last but not least, again, a market similar to what we were saying, we're already at the initial balance low from London. Question now becomes, is this going to be an area? We're now coming in from the bottom of an area that was prior supportive. Is this area going to offer us a location for price to stall and continue to the downside? Okay, as long as price is below our 9 or in our EMA and our VWAP, then my view remains to the bearish side in some sort of range. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. I'm going to take a peek here in chat and see if there's any other markets. Otherwise, I'm going to be initially focused in on my attention on gold, possibly silver, to see what kind of opportunities. Yeah, that is with the Dow. Anthill, with the Dow, I have some delayed data. Okay, that's only with the Dow. Anthill. Okay. All right, but I think the analysis that I provided is at a higher level, so it should not. I think it still remains valid, right? It's a little bit of a 15-minute delay on the data, but since we're looking at this from a multi-time frame, it should be okay. Okay, but thank you for alerting me of that. All right, so again, I'm going to be right. So I'm going to be focused in on gold here and silver to start the session, and yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Okay, so again, this is what do we call it? Capital Preservation Fridays. Okay, if you've had a relatively good week, this is not the day to give it all back. Okay, if you've had a good week, set a revised budget for what your what you can engage with the markets with, and make sure that you walk away, with some profit in the week if you are there. Okay, if you're negative on the market, we don't need to add to those. Right, Fridays historically in my data have not been days that I can kind of how do you say recover poor weeks. Okay, Friday is not the day. All right, so it's best to limit our risk, participate if we can, okay, in A plus setups, but we need to maybe reduce risk as much as we can, and not allow Fridays to spoil what otherwise could have been a good week. Okay, so with that, guys, with that bit of advice, we'll go ahead and close off the session here, as we close most sessions. Trade well, trade safe, trade like a pro, be a market trader. Okay, guys. So have an excellent weekend. Have an excellent day trading. Okay. And we'll talk again on Monday. All right. You too, Sepadia. All right, guys. We'll talk soon. You're welcome, Antha Will. Welcome.